Here, read this.
Woof.
Well, good evening. It is the 27th of November 2025, and here is your poem for the day. Hopefully my voice is a little bit better and I don't wince as much as I did in yesterday's poem for the day, which, if you didn't catch, basically I had a very minor procedure on my tongue which required a few stitches, which meant that I was very ginger, I think, in my reading of yesterday's poem. It's still a little bit sore, and I feel like I'm talking a bit like a thunderbird, but it's so much better, so hopefully it won't affect things too much. As always, I'll read the poem through in full and then talk a little bit about it at the end. Tonight's poem is called An Incomplete History of Rock Music in the Hebrides, and it's by Donald S. Murray. Peewits, quiffed like Elvis, reel from rocks, their sheen of feathers like blue suede, the breeze buffs in the midday air. He loves you, Meah, 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 bleat a fat four of blackface sheep, beneath mop-tops of unshorn hair. Jagged stalks of thistles strut, flashing menace in the evening light, before a group of timeworn stones. Spangled with glitter, starlings soar, and oystercatchers sport red lips, while herons stalk on platform shoes. Each fulmar packs its pistol. There's anarchy on cliff tops as they reel and spit on rocks below. Then a riff is played on marram grass, shells syncopate on shorelines as night downs its curtain on the show. So I've not read much of Donald S. Murray's poetry, except the little scraps that pop up elsewhere in his writing. I've read some of his books of non-fiction, including my favourite, The Cougar Hunters, which is about the men of Ness who hunt juvenile gannets, cougar. And he's also written historical novels like As the Women Lay Dreaming, which tells the story of the 1919 Iolaire disaster, where a ship called the Iolaire, carrying hundreds of soldiers back from World War I, sank within sight of shore. Somewhat more light-hearted, this poem, which recounts the history of rock and roll by grafting it onto all sorts of Hebridean wildlife. It's a very winning first line. Peewits, quiffed like Elvis, reel from rocks. It's got a very crisp, trochaic bounce to it, very fun to read. And I like how, after he name-checks Elvis and the Fat Four, the Beatles, later on, the appearances from rock and roll legends are a little bit more coy, a bit more disguised. Jagged stalks of thistles strut, flashing menace in the evening light before a group of time-worn stones. So it's pretty obvious who he's getting at there with the jagged stalks strutting and the time-worn stones, maybe a little pop at those fossilized rockers, the Rolling Stones. Now, I'm very interested in his choices in the next section, where he gets onto the era of like glam rock. I think Bowie. I'm not sure if there's any references here that are specific to Bowie. I'm not that much of an expert. But spangled with glitter, starlings soar, and oystercatchers sport red lips, while herons stalk on platform shoes. What interests me about this bit is that it reminded me of what Susan Sontag said in her Notes on Camp. She says that nothing in nature can be camp. By definition, everything that is camp is artificial, therefore no animal or natural feature, anything that's not man-made, simply can't be camp. Donald S. Murray seems to disagree, putting forward starlings, oystercatchers, and herons as camp. I think he's onto something with oystercatchers. I mean, it's a very decadent sort of job, isn't it? Catching oysters. I mean, we all know there's not much catching involved, but we let them call it that. I'm not sure about herons, except that they're very exaggerated. They're sort of close as you could get to a javelin, while still technically being a bird. I suppose that's quite camp. Starlings, however, are a fantastic shout for camp existing in nature. They are mimics, and there is nothing camper than imitation and parody. Plus, as Murray rightly points out, they are spangled with glitter. I think for the most part, Murray has the upper hand on this gimmick of Hebridean wildlife meets rock and roll, apart from one line, which is the Beatles line, basically. He loves you, which is E-W-E, Meah, 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 bleat a fat four of blackface sheep. I have to say that's the one line I didn't enjoy reading, and it's got nothing to do with this stupid tongue situation. He caves at that point to a kind of panto impulse. It's the only time he doesn't let the gimmick work both ways. Of course, it would bring the house down at a poetry night, and I can't think of a more damning criticism than that. But yes, with the exception of that line, I think the rest of the poem is a banger.